Hi guys, so the next part of our project, best to demonstrate it working hopefully. So if I run what we're aiming to achieve by the end of this task, and a quick reminder I guess, we have the admin login that will allow us to go to the admin page which does nothing, and then we have a variety of users who can all log in now. And then the updated part is now we have this. We've got this table which has been added to our student view form. We've got the username being displayed here and a couple of meaningless buttons at the moment which we'll add functionality for later. So we can crack on with what we should have at the minute. You can see we need to create a new class, but we'll get to that in a second. So we're going to go to the student form first of all and make a few changes or notice what we've got. The last time we were in, we were storing the username in the student form. What I want to do is change our constructor, so it's going to take the argument string s that we're going to set equal to the username. Now the reason for that is we weren't actually setting the username, we were just popping it on the label. So in actual fact it would be better there if we actually displayed the person's name rather than the username. So feel free to update that if you want. You can get it to display whatever you like. Now when I make that change to the student form, I will get errors in the login form, because the constructor method call requires the username passed in as an argument when we make it. So we pass that in, that should take care of the error in there. And we go back to student form, you can see that that error's gone. So quite a few things that we need to do before we start. So on the student form, if we go to the design of it, what you want to add is a table. So you literally just click, drag and drop the table. Now it defaults to having 4, so I'll just erase the other one I have here and redo it again. So drag it on there. You can make changes to the layout if you wish, just to make it all fit in there. Shrink it a little. There we go. Fix that later, I'm not bothered about this at the moment. So we need to right click, change the contents of it, choose columns, and I only want 3 columns in mine. We have the exam area field. Now we can have spaces here because this is just a display. We can have the grade field and also display the unit area, I think is the last one. And again, you can go back and change these if you need to, so you can see that changing. Let me just see if I can shrink this, otherwise it's going to look horrific when we load it open. Okay, I'll just figure that out later. I'm not sure why it's not letting me resize. Let's see. It's a bit better there. Again, not a big important thing to do at the moment, just it looks horrible, so I wanted to fix it. Now before we do that, I want to create an exam class to store exam objects. Now I'll just paste that code so that you can have it. So I've got it open here already. It's very basic, just a simple constructor that allows us to store the exam name, the grade that was achieved, and then the course area that comes from, and then just basic accessors and mutators. So I'm going to copy all of that. If you want to type it up, I'll just scroll top to bottom real slowly so you can practice. Pause the video if you need to put that information in, or just so you can understand what's happening, but very, very basic. So I want to click on simple login application, right click and choose new class. This class is called exam, and I'll just hit finish. And I'll just paste in that code there. Now the reason I'm doing that is so I can create an array list in the student form to store all of those exams. And the reason I've chosen an array list is because I want to have memory efficiency, because obviously the array list is dynamic in terms of its memory use. So now we're on a student form, we've got everything set up, we've got our object to store specific details about the exam, return specific details about the exam. I want to now have an array list of type exam for that object we just created, which I'll just call my exams, equals new array list, and hopefully you are familiar with those. Now I'll get an error because I don't have the package, the module library installed for that. So let's import java.util.arraylist, and that should take care of that one. And next we want to set up a query to the database. So we will query the database grades, now not the usernames one, for all exams. So for that, it's the same idea as the last time we queried it. It's a DB connection that we set up a few lessons ago, get connection, and we want to return that. Now we get the error again because we need to import java.sql.connection, and we'll have a few imports to do here. And next we want to set up the query we want to do. So this time we want to select everything from the grades table where the username equals one of the parameter arguments that we'll send over to it. So like last time, we need to have a try as well as a catch, which I'll just fill in quickly. Exact same. You possibly would be quicker just copy pasting what you had the last time and changing what's in here. So I'll just do a system.out.print line this time, error getting grades, close my brackets off there. So in here we want to create a new prepared statement, exact same as last time, and then set that up with the connection to actually prepare the query and pass in the query as the argument to that. And again, we'll have the same issues we've had before, where we've got to import java.sql.prepared statement, back down, and then we need to set up the string that we want to replace the username with, and it's going to be the first one, and we're going to replace it with the username. Now I've had some errors here before, so sometimes it's useful to print out the username to just test that, so I'll just do it and then comment it out later. And we'll just print out the username at that point just to make sure it's what we expect it to be. And same as before, we want a result set is equal to the query being executed, so execute query. And we should probably have another error because we need to import for that. Import java.sql.resultSet, storing all the results. And we've got a few other things that we're going to have to do using this array list and exams, which we'll do in a second. And we will create a sub procedure, a method to display and update our table. So what do we need to do now? Well, we've executed that query, and while the rs.next, whilst we've still got results from that query, we are going to do string username equals the result set.getString, and we will tell it to fetch us back the exam name. We need to get the integer grade, so we will do int grade equals rs.getInt grade. You also want the string course area equals rs.getString, and we want to search for the field called course area, and that, now just realised I do want to get exam name, but using username silly. It was good I got the little notification there. It's actually the exam name is what's being fetched there. Now the reason I've initialised them here, I'm just going to use them temporarily in a second. Now what I'm just going to do is test that that's working by printing them out. So we'll print out exam name with little space and just print out the grade there. Now that should work to display them on the system out, and then we can go about adding them to the table. So this is how I'd always do it, to just make sure I've got the data before I try and add it to the table. So hopefully this works first time, and we don't have to fix any errors, which we do have. So we can see the printout, it's obviously using the correct username, but it's having some issue with executing the query, which we'll need to try and decipher why, so we can fix that part. So it's obviously using the correct username. We've set the string. Let's see, got the connection. So it's going to be something really trivial here that we've made a slight mistake on. Let's just take that out for a second and try again. Let's try running that again without this to see what happens. And this is one of the problems we'll have from time to time of code not doing as you expect. So log in, we're still getting the error with the grades. Let's see, prepare statement equals column dot prepare statement. Drawing a blank with this one. ps.string1 username, all fine. System.outprint username, result set. Execute the query. Strange. Select start. Really silly mistake. It's the SQL code I've written incorrectly. We need to tell it the from, so that's unbelievably basic. I probably wouldn't have made that mistake if I'd copy pasted that in. Okay, well that's good that we've spotted that error, and it will happen. And in fact, this is the second time I've made this video because of the same problem the last time. I'm not sure why I was getting it. So hopefully this time loads up. Try the username with the correct password. Fingers crossed. We get no errors this time, and we've got the output displaying all the data that we wanted, which is perfect. So I'll just comment out that line for testing. So now what we want to do is to start to put that data somewhere we can access it again. So I'm going to create a temp exam object, which is just going to be used to store these temporarily. So when we get those in, I'm going to set temp equal to those, and I'm going to pass in the parameters in the correct order, which is the exam name, passing in the grade next, and passing in finally the course area, which is going to create a new temporary exam object, which I will then add to our array list. Now this won't actually change anything at all. If you're unsure of what order your arguments need to go into your constructor, just look back at your class declaration and your constructor declaration there to see what order you need to put things in. Now that we have them in our array list, after it's done with all that part, what I want to do now is just to keep it tidy. We may have a point where we want to update the table again, so rather than having duplicate code, I'll write this once so that the table is updated. So another private method that we'll just call, say in there, update table. Not worried about parameters being passed to this one, wrong brackets. I'll do the correct ones now. You can look this up online and you'll get code explained to you, but this is necessary to set up what we're doing. JTable1, let's just double check what our table's called again. Maybe change the name. It's called JTable1. I always call it JTable1 exams just so that it's easy to understand what it's doing. So JTable1 underscore exams dot, and I want to get the model. So you can do some reading on that, but it basically just sets up the table model the same way as we just did with the 3 columns. Got the error because we need to import the default table model, which is coming from Swing. So import javax.swing.table.abstract table model. That should take care of our error here, hopefully. Default table model. Oops, abstract table model. Got to be careful when I'm using the auto selection one that I choose the correct one. And after we've done that, we need to set the row count back to 0. So we speak to the model, set row count to 0. And we need objects to add to the row. Now that object is of size 3 because there's 3 individual data types being added to it. So we've got a string, then an integer, then a string. We need to loop using a fixed loop around each of the objects. So I less than exams.size, spell it carefully, I hope that's click 1, I plus plus, and for each of them we set row at index 0 equal to, this is where we need to remember what we've called our array list. So our full array list is called my exams, and I want to get the current exam, which is the full object. So you need to use dot notation, and then the first one is to get the exam name. You can see that they appear here. So that will get the exam name for row 0. Row index 1 is the same idea. My exams dot get the current one dot, and that would be the integer. So that's the get grade. And then row at number 2, same idea again, my exams dot get I dot, and this one will be get course area. Now you could add in system.out print lines to test this here if you need to, but let's just hope that it works time. So then what we need to do is to the model dot add row that we've just set up there. Add row, and then we need to pass in the actual row we've just created, and that should hopefully be it. So now if we ever need to update and display new items in the table, we can do that. Now this time when we run, let's see if we can get it working for all the users. So let's try this one, logging in, and now we have them displaying in our table. If we exit, that logs us out. And we'll try one of the other users. That's good that that's still working. Let's just check the other usernames. Test that it works for those. So we've got PWY. Let's actually check that that's one of the users. I think that's an error there. Not PWY, that's fine. Log in. We can see that it's displaying just that one. So you could then manipulate that data as you go. You could calculate the average grade. You could spend some time looping through the unit areas, calculating specific grades for the unit areas. But now you've got that information in there, you can also do things where you can go in, make changes to this, and update the things that are stored in the database. Now that allows it to edit. We can change on the design, where looking at the properties, you can make it editable or not, depending on what you're trying to achieve. You may want to make it editable, you may, for this one I don't, because I just want the student to see the grades that they have, and maybe we can do more updates to this to store more analysis of their exams. We could add in another array list that keeps track of the units you've completed, displays in another table your average grades for each of the units. There's so much more that we could add to this, so hopefully that helps you see that people make mistakes all the time with really simple stuffs in the SQL, and hopefully show you how to use the GUI table object as well as executing other queries. So in the next one, I want to start being able to add new exams to a student's database. In the video after that, we'll see about how we can add or allow users to sign up that don't have accounts, or use admin to let them sign up. It's the same process.